Here, I won't look. See, told you. But in the metal and I made this what I call affectionately an IV stand. It's just a tool stand with a light on it and other features while I was still at weld school to solve some pretty frustrating issues that I was experiencing there. Lack of light was a big issue, lack of electrical power. The tools that I used on a constant basis, like my layout tools, were either constantly covered with other things or they were nowhere to be found. And all these things added up to a lot of time wasted. These are issues that I would expect you would find in pretty much any industrial environment, whether it's weld fabrication or automotive or even in your own shop. And so I wanted to come up with a solution that could solve those problems, but that I could also use after I graduated welding school in my own shop or beyond if that situation presented itself. It's proven to be a great problem-solving addition to my workshop in all kinds of different situations, whether I'm working on my car or I'm welding at my table or welding out in the shop, for example. I found this thing so useful. I could take it and move it around the shop wherever I need it. If I'm not welding at my table, if I am welding at my table, it's still very useful. A lot of these tools used to lay on the table if I wasn't using them at the time, and it just makes it hard to work around, and also they get lost easily. This has solved that. My hand tools are right there within reach, and I can tell at a glance if one of them is missing. It gives me electrical power on demand. I can wheel this outside wherever I need it if I'm working on my car. It provides light where I need it, directly down into the engine bay. And also, a lot of times I have to weld out by my truck. And this holds my weld gun and other tools right at arm's length. So I can alter the location of any of these tool holders, or I can take them off the stand altogether. This thing is useful in all kinds of situations, and it also accomplishes one of my main goals, which was for it to not look hideous. I thought I would make a video about it because I feel this is actually a very applicable thing for a variety of different industrial environments, whether it's automotive or weld fabrication, or even in your own shop, depending on what your workflow is. And as I'll demonstrate throughout the video, you can customize where the tool holders reside, or you can take them off altogether as your workflow changes. I wanted to have readily available power. As I mentioned, in weld school, that wasn't always the case. And so I put a 4-way outlet box on here, and then I supplied power to it by this 110 volt 20 amp extension cord that's 30 foot long. So if there's an outlet within 30 feet of where I am, I have power for up to 4 appliances. So 2 grinders, maybe an auxiliary light or whatever. I attached a clip here, a retaining clip, so that if there's stress on this cable from clumsy welding students or clumsy me tripping on the cord, it won't pull this wiring out of the outlet box here. I also, as you can see, this thing's rather tall, but I kind of worried that it would be top heavy. So I filled this square tube with sand, and then the sand is a permanent fixture. I capped off the tube, and I think the sand added probably 8 to 10 extra pounds, and it really, I think, helped to lower the center of gravity. Next, we've got my little electrode, my stick electrode holder. We did a few modules that included 6010 open root, followed by subsequent passes with 7018 rods. So this was a method of keeping these filler materials separated and easily accessible for when I needed them. Just got to turn around, don't even have to look. Just turn around, grab one. It can also accommodate filler metal for TIG welding as well. So, and as you see here, all these tool holders are both adjustable and removable. So if my workflow changes and I don't need stick electrodes and I don't need filler material, but I want to put a different different tool holder on there, I could just take this off and replace it with a different one. Or I can move it up. Like if I grow 5 or 6 inches in a year or something, as one tends to do. It's not an enormous thing, but it is a slight annoyance. You're using a grinder on a constant basis at welding school. And so, and I use a grinder fairly regularly here in my shop now as well. You can't really set the grinder down safely while the head is still rotating. And my grinders, I don't have electric brakes on any of my grinders. They're all old school, I guess. So it's a minor safety hazard and a minor annoyance time after time to have to wait for that thing to stop spinning before you set it down. But with these holders, it's just a thin piece of stainless steel. It's just thin enough to be accommodated underneath the guard on my grinders. Love that. So easy to retrieve, easy to put back. This little tool bracket is my MIG gun holder. One of the issues in welding school was there was no place. I mean, you could hang it over something, but that just was a very awkward solution I found. This keeps it readily at hand. It's not going to, you're not going to, this thing gets pretty hot when you weld it, as any welder will understand. And so you could lay it on the table, but if there's anything else on the table, you risk burning through it. I once burned through, if anybody's ever used a wire feeder, a portable wire feeder that looks like a suitcase, I accidentally put this, I thought I was laying it, I was working at the shipyard, and I laid this down, and I guess I just didn't pay attention. And before I knew it, it had burned a hole all the way through that mobile wire feeder. And that thing is not a cheap piece of equipment. So this mitigates that risk a little bit, and it also just keeps it in a predictable place so that you can, if this thing is kind of to the side of you, you know exactly where that gun is. Just put it back when you're done, and it's ready to go. I can, almost without looking, I can retrieve this off of the holder. Well, I just looked, so I guess that doesn't prove anything, but here, I won't look. See? Told you. The weird, kind of seemingly amorphous, I guess, look to this is due to the fact that I designed this to be able to hold my stick electrode holder as well, and also my TIG torch. So the way that I settled on this design was I used 2 pieces of cardboard. I played around with different designs, and it's a lot easier to manipulate cardboard. So I did a couple cardboard cutouts, and then I cut little parts off as I figured out a better way of doing things. And I bent the cardboard into the shape you see now, kind of taped it to this piece of cardboard, and then used I try to dry fit my torch and my MIG gun and so forth, and until I got something that was a good fit, and then I made those into reality, into the metal that you see here. Another of my most often used tools is my chipping hammer. And so I put 2 magnets here, rare earth, very strong magnets. And then there's 2 form-fitting metal pieces that form exactly with the anatomy of the only chipping hammer that you'll ever need, which is the east wing, which completely destroys and puts to shame every other chipping hammer I've ever seen, at least. And now we come to marking and measuring tools, which, whether you're working on your car or you're working at your bench or what have you, they always tend to get buried underneath a mountain of nonsense, and you spend half your life looking for them. Well, now I have my most used tools, which are my whelpers, my tape measure, my other marking tools like my scribes, my center punch, my marker, my mark all, which is kind of a soapstone substitute, and my combination square, all easily at hand. I can tell at a glance if one of them's missing. They're always in a predictable location. Here for the combination square, which is got an oversized combination head there. All I did was cut a slot there in the metal and slips right in there, sits ready to go whenever I need it. You'll notice that, again, I like the wood accents because I think they warm up what otherwise would be kind of a cold metal presentation. I was just going to make a square piece of wood in a similar format as this, but it's a little simpler, I guess, without the angles. But I kind of like the idea of the tools kind of extending out. They're like, hey, grab me and use me, you know, sort of a friendly thing. I know it's kind of silly, but I think it looks pretty cool. And now we come to the crowning, as it were, portion of the tool stand. The fabulously powerful stack light. You know, as I mentioned before, when I built this, I was still in welding school, and we were living in the dark ages in there, maybe because the lights that we did have, the overhead lights, were covered with 17,000 years of grime and grit from students welding for all that time. So this thing really changed. It was a game changer when I was at weld school, and still now. I mean, you can angle this thing wherever it needs to go. It's very powerful. I don't know how that translates to the video footage, but when you're in a dark booth, I mean, this thing lights up the night. So I wired this light directly into the outlet box that you see down there permanently. And just for visual reasons, I didn't want wires hanging out. This particular light, I know somebody's going to ask, it's made by a company called stacklight.com. I'll include a link in the description, but I've got 4 or 5 of these various different kinds of lights. I've got another duplicate of this for another stand that I made. I've got another one for a permanent installation on my 2x72 grinder that I built. And then there's another one that's a portable light with a magnetic base that I found also very useful in welding school. This is a great company. They respond to phone calls. I can't tell you how annoying it is when you can pretty much guarantee that whatever company you call, you're going to reach a robot at first. Well, with this company, within 1 or 2 rings, I reached an actual live human, which was greatly refreshing. And as it states on their website, they pride themselves in really, really fast shipping. So it's Amazon level. I mean, I hate to say it, but Amazon is the standard for shipping, I would say. These guys ship just as fast as Amazon. I hope you found this video to be as useful as I found this stand to be over the years. You may look at it and think, well, this is not really a project that I'm willing to undertake. You know, with every project, I like to take on something new. I don't base the project on whether I'm able to build that at that given time. I base it more on, does it solve the problem? And if it's a technique that I need to learn, then I'm going to learn it in the process of building that thing. And I think that's a great way to really improve your craftsmanship. And I definitely learned a few things building this. This was probably my first rather, I wouldn't say complicated, but involved piece of metalwork that I engaged in. And I really learned a lot from the one project. Each tool holder was a different set of challenges that had to be overcome. Even just things as simple as, how do you hold the metal pieces together while you tack them up? These are all things that seem obvious now, but they definitely weren't obvious in the building of the stand. But they're also things that illustrate how every piece that you engage in really improves your craftsmanship.
What are you doing, little girl? Oh.
I would tell you, you can make it as complicated or as simple as you as you can make it as complicated as I just made that sentence. Problems I was having when I was still at welding school, such as lack of low light. I had plenty of low light.
Birdie. You're gonna be a firewoman, lifting 250-pound guys out of the building. Cool.